Committee. I call this meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Dr. Bofi? Present. Mr. Castile?
Here.
Dr. Davis? Here. Mr. Davis? I'm sorry, Dr. Sue Weaver? Ms. Ellis? Here. Mr. Garvey? Not in attendance. Ms. Holloway? Present. Mr. Morris?
Here.
Ms. Kira Orange-Jones? Present. Mr. Brock?
Present.
Ms. Boche? Here. And Ms. Natalie Roy, Teacher of the Year? Present. You have a quorum. And also, you may notice that we're going through some technology changes. This room is currently having a revamp, so we've got some different mics on the dais. Board members, you just have to push it on and off whenever you're ready to speak. You're familiar with these, but they do catch, with the exception of this one, they catch sound pretty well. So turn off your mic when you're not using it.
Thank you very kindly. And I would like to take one special privilege here to recognize, of course, she recently recognized our new Teacher of the Year, that Teacher of the Year, Ms. Natalie Roy. We say welcome. Thank you. We also have the chair of the House Education Committee, who is Mr. Ray Fowler. I know I mispronounced that last name. Mr. Ray, okay, all right. And we also have a former BESE member in our presence today, Dr. Judy Durante. I followed Dr. Durante on the board some few years ago. We certainly wish and happy that they are with us today. Thank you all very kind. Okay, first item, please, ma'am.
Your consent agenda is ready for your approval, adding items 6.1 and 7.1.
So moved. We have a motion, all right. We have, could I have a second? Second by Ms. Ellis. You have a motion and a question. All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye, opposed, nay. Aye, that was the one. All right. Go ahead. Next item, please.
Your first item is on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of an update report regarding the teacher preparation quality rating system. The department recommendation is to receive the report regarding teacher preparation program accountability. Additional backup has been distributed.
We have a motion. Motion, Madam President, to receive. Second by Dr. Davis. To receive that report or anything.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, Dr.
Yes, sir, Mr. Rock. I'd like to make just a few opening remarks for this presentation and share that we can certainly all agree in the value of an effective teacher on the life of every individual child across the state. In fact, I have shared many times, there is probably nothing more important than a highly skilled, highly qualified educator in front of every child, armed with a robust curriculum to do that work. And we recognize that one of the most important things that we can do to ensure that we have those highly effective teachers is to work alongside our pre-service providers to make sure that we are all working together so that teachers are prepared on day one to enter those classrooms to all extent possible. Louisiana in many ways has taken a lead in working with these providers to make sure that we are doing all that we can to help our new teachers be successful on the first day. And part of that has been the implementation of an accountability system for our pre-service providers. And so what we are going to do here today is to share out the initial report on these early findings. We are pleased to be able to do this. We are thankful for the leadership of this board in prior years around doing this key work. And we also know that we still have more work to do. And I'm thankful that we have a strong relationship with the Board of Regents who is represented here today, but also with other providers who are in this space to try and prepare our teachers into the classroom and be successful on day one. So at this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Sarah Delano, who will give a presentation, and then we will also hear from some of the providers who are in the field doing this work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brumley. I want to start by just providing an overview of the system and talk through some of the key trends that we're seeing in the first informational performance profiles. The profiles that were released last week are informational only. None of the data from this system will be used to inform accountability decisions until 2023. So what we're going to do is talk through the measures in the system. We'll talk through the trends, and then we are going to hear directly from preparation providers about their experience with the implementation of this new accountability system. This accountability system is required by federal regulations. So the U.S. Department of Education requires each state to have an accountability system for teacher preparation providers. This is the second iteration of an accountability system for teacher prep here in Louisiana. BESE charged the department with bringing together a work group in 2016 to inform the development of this new system. This work group was facilitated by Dr. Bob Pianta out of the University of Virginia and included teacher preparation providers. Dr. Brumley was actually the school system representative at that point in time. And the work group's recommendations formed the policy that BESE adopted in 2017. The key aspect of this accountability system is that it really results in actionable feedback that preparation providers can use to continue to strengthen their programs. Another key aspect of this system is that it rewards preparation providers who are meeting Louisiana's workforce needs. Based upon the recommendations from the work group, this system measures 3 domains. Sorry, I feel like I'm having microphone issues here. It's bothering me. We'll get it figured out. So the way the system is laid out is half of the overall rating for preparation providers is based upon an on-site review process. During this process, a group of external reviewers spend a week with preparation providers to really get a clear understanding of the quality of the preparation that they're offering. They sit in coursework, they observe clinical faculty as they're giving feedback to candidates, they interview principals, mentors, and at the end of that week, they have a really clear sense of what's going well in the program and where there might be areas of focus. They create a report that preparation providers receive, and then the score is based upon, half of this is based upon the overall rating for the on-site review, which is a level 1 to 4. There are 2 other domains in the accountability system. So half of the rating is based upon the on-site review process. 25% of the overall rating is based upon the extent to which providers are meeting Louisiana's workforce needs in terms of preparing candidates in our highest need certification areas, which is special education and middle and secondary math and science, as well as the extent to which providers are placing their residents in our highest need schools. These high-need schools include rural schools that are more than 25 miles from preparation providers. The final measure in this accountability system is teacher quality. That is currently measured by the value-added results of program completers. Over the last 4 years, as we've been phasing in this system, we've had significant discussion about the teacher quality domain, and this is something that we are going to continue to discuss with our quality rating system work group to understand if there are additional objective measures of K-12 student success that we can include. One thing that I will note is that this on-site review process that I mentioned has 4 different domains that are being looked at. In one of the domains, which is the quality of content, knowledge, and teaching methods, the reviewers are looking very closely at the literacy training and coursework from providers. This is also one of the key trends that we're going to talk about. So, the informational performance profiles were just released on LouisianaTeacherPrep.com last week. This website was actually launched in the fall, and we really see this website as an opportunity to showcase teacher preparation providers across the state. So every preparation provider has a profile on the website and an opportunity to have a video to highlight testimonials from their candidates. The second page of this website now includes the informational performance profiles. And so what we're going to do now is go through the trends from these first informational performance profiles. As I mentioned previously, this information that was just released is informational only. It will not be until 2023 that this information is used to inform continued program approval decisions. I'm going to highlight now some of the key trends that we're seeing from the quality rating system. I would first like to note that the way this system is set out is that preparation providers receive one performance profile for their set of undergraduate programs and one performance profile for their set of post-baccalaureate programs. Many of our universities train teachers at both the undergraduate and post-baccalaureate level, so they'll actually receive two profiles and will be represented in this data twice. In terms of overall trends, what we are seeing in the first profiles is that it is a little less than half of our undergraduate pathways that are getting a level 3 effective. A little more than half of the post-baccalaureate pathways are getting a level 3 effective. There are three promising trends that we would like to note and one key area of focus. I think the first promising trend is that this is actually the third informational performance profile that teacher preparation providers have received, and we're seeing growth as the system is being phased in. And so we're already seeing, as compared to the performance profiles from last year, 20% of our undergraduate pathways received a higher score. We are also seeing that preparation providers are really using the data from this system to inform really important programmatic decisions. One of those is the decision about offering high-need certification areas. So within the last 18 months, 43% of our preparation providers have begun to offer programs to train educators in those high-need areas of special education or middle and secondary math and science. So we're really, really excited to see these new training programs coming online. This third really promising trend that we do want to highlight is research tells us that where an aspiring educator completes their residency has a really key impact on where they will first become employed. And so one of the things that the system hopes to do is incentivize preparation providers for placing aspiring educators with really high quality mentors in schools that need them most. What we are seeing from this initial data is that more than half of the undergraduate residents who are placed in those high-need schools are staying in those schools and actually building a really needed talent pipeline for the schools that need them most. One area of focus that we are seeing in these informational performance profiles, and an area that we really would like to partner with the Board of Regents and teacher preparation programs on, is literacy training. We are seeing in the on-site review reports that we have some teacher preparation providers who are offering excellent literacy training that comprehensively covers the science of reading. We are also seeing that there are some providers who could really strengthen this literacy training, and we see this as a huge opportunity for partnership moving forward. So this slide here goes over in more detail the growth of ratings that I mentioned previously. I want to discuss just for a moment what we're seeing in terms of the differences in the overall rating for our undergraduate pathways and post-baccalaureate pathways. The reason that we're seeing that more of the post-baccalaureate pathways are currently at a level 3 effective is because the post-baccalaureate pathways are doing better in that meeting workforce needs domain. So we're seeing that post-baccalaureate pathways are training more educators in those high-need certification areas, placing more candidates in high-need schools. So wanted to note that. This goes over the information that I discussed verbally in terms of the domain trends. Before I turn it over to the panel, I do want to jump to one slide, well, two slides. The first slide that I want to jump to is the programs that the on-site review reports are showing have really strong literacy training. So these are the 10 pathways that received a level 3 in literacy training. And so I did want to highlight that here. There are some very strong examples in our states of literacy training. And the second thing that I want to do before I turn it over to our panel is just to talk a little bit more about this teacher quality domain. So what you're seeing on this slide is that currently it's about half of pathways that are receiving a teacher quality rating. The reason for that is twofold. First, in order to receive this rating, a preparation provider has to have 10 program completers with value-added results over a 3-year period. For these profiles only, due to COVID-19, we were only able to use 2 cohorts of program completers. And so we have fewer pathways that met that threshold and then therefore got the teacher quality rating. This is something that we are going to discuss with a teacher preparation quality rating system work group to really understand how can we include more objective measures of student success so that moving forward, we have significantly more pathways that receive this rating. The way the system is set up is if a provider does not receive a rating for the teacher quality domain, half of their overall score is based upon the on-site review, the other half on meeting workforce needs. That's just a little bit about the key trends and the way the system is set up. We thought it would be really helpful for all of you to hear directly from the Board of Regents first. The Board of Regents was a really integral partner in developing this system. And then also to hear directly from teacher preparation providers about their experience with the implementation of this system. So they're going to talk through, one, the extent to which they believe that this is really measuring what matters most with regard to teacher prep. And then secondly, the extent to which this on-site review process is really resulting in actionable feedback that they can utilize to strengthen their programs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over first to Dr. Susanna Craig from the Board of Regents.
Hi, good morning. My name is Dr. Susanna Craig. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Innovation at the Louisiana Board of Regents, and I'm pleased to be here today to speak with you about the collaborative nature of this particular project. We are very happy to continue in this partnership with the Louisiana Department of Education, and I'm here to express that the department has included not only the Board of Regents, but teacher preparation provider programs at each stage of the process. We've participated in the development of the rubrics, revision of those rubrics. We've participated in the development of making decisions and recommendations around the components of the quality rating system, and we've been consulted at each phase of the process. We have very strong teacher preparation programs at institutions of higher education in the state of Louisiana. As lifelong educators ourselves, we welcome the opportunity for evaluation by quality, fair measures. These informational results will provide a baseline for self-reflection and self-evaluation, and will provide a path forward for all teacher preparation programs. We appreciate this phase-in process and look forward to continued growth and improvement over the next several years as this is phased in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Craig. Okay, so I think next we're going to have one of our private providers from TNTP. If you could come up, introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing us time to share our experiences today. My name is Selena Supervision. I'm a partner at TNTP, and I oversee TNTP Academy, which is our alternative pathway to certification in Louisiana. Just a little bit of context about our program. While in our program, participants engage in a year-long teaching residency in a Louisiana public school, while also completing content-specific coursework training and development with TNTP coaches and instructors. Our areas of study include elementary education, early childhood education, math, science, English language arts, and special education. TNTP has participated in working groups with the LDOE throughout the learning phase of the teacher preparation quality rating system, providing feedback to help refine the process as well as tools. In our experience, we found that the components of the system are aligned with what we value and helps to ensure we are focused both on inputs as well as outputs, which we feel is an important balance in assessing program quality. Since the start of this work, our program has undergone 2 on-site reviews. One is a learning pilot, and then the second in 2019. In both cases, our TNTP team have utilized feedback from the review process to improve elements of our program experience for candidates. With regard to teacher quality, we believe the best measure of a teacher's effectiveness is their actual performance in the classroom. And academic growth is an especially important part of that. And student achievement data, to the extent that it's available, gives us a window into the academic impact our participants have on their students. For example, if we're seeing lower value-added results in a certain subject area, we would then look internally at our program content, we would look at our coaching, and consider how to address that gap to improve a participant's experience in our program and better prepare them for the classroom. In reviewing value-added data statewide, we've also found that it helps us understand our teachers' impact relative to other first-year teachers in the state. TNTP has long included value-added results as a component of our own evaluation system and a component of how we make certification decisions for teachers in our program. We're supportive of the multi-measure approach and the balance of the quality measures as they currently exist, and look forward to continuing to be thought partners and a resource to the state as we move forward with this process. Thank you for the time to share our experience and thoughts, and thank you for the time today.
Thank you so much. We're now going to ask, I think we have some representatives from McNeese State to talk a little bit about their experience.
Good morning. My name is Angel Lojan, I'm the Dean of Burton College of Education at McNeese State University. I'm very excited to be here today to share with you our learning journey from the data and the information we've got from the on-site review. Our information that I'm going to share with you today is from TPI US, which was several years ago. We were supposed to have a visit in the fall, but a couple hurricanes, whatever. It didn't happen. So I don't follow directions very well, so I'm just going to let you know that I talk very fast and everything I say is super important. And so because you're not going to catch it all, I have a flyer when I leave. And all good teachers know I'm not supposed to give it to you while I'm presenting, because then you won't listen to me. So here I go. All right, so I actually took data from what they gave us, and I'm going to tell you actual information that we did and initiatives that we've put in since we had our on-site visit, and then just information that we're thinking about as we continue to move forward. So the first part, as I said, on 50% of our score is quality of selection of teacher candidates, and we were found to be in need of recruiting diverse teacher candidates, as everyone is across the nation. And so the initiatives that we put in were Ed Rising and also Call Me Mister. And so we're super excited to have those initiatives in place, but as a college level program, we only have so much say-so in the funding that our school districts will put in to actually purchase Ed Rising curriculum, which is a little bit on the expensive side and a reoccurring expense for our districts. So we have been looking for grant money in order to put that program into high-need schools, because we have the option to fund it and not have to wait on a district to tell us that's the school they want to put it in. We are very excited to say we are one of the recipients of the grant for Ed Rising curriculum. The second thing is about quality of content, knowledge, and teaching methods. And so what we found was across our programs, both with faculty, university supervisors, and students, we do not have a common definition of differentiation. So it's very, very hard to teach differentiation, to practice differentiation, and have our candidates match their differentiation when we're all telling them different things. And so from that, we actually partnered with US Prep And they came in and did professional development for our university supervisors, for our faculty, and for those current candidates that were in student teaching at the time. We also have incorporated the model for differentiation, which we've included as a master assessment piece for us throughout all of our programs, so they don't just get that good quality feedback at the end of the program. In addition to that, speaking for the next part of the 50%, quality of clinical placement feedback and candidate performance, what we also found was a lacking in quality feedback to our candidates. And so again, many of our university supervisors had not been in an actual classroom in a minute, and we did not have a repetitive learning experience for them. So what we've done is we've moved from outside entities for university supervisors that go in the field for student teaching and residents, and move to either a full-time faculty that does that in addition to teaching courses, or hiring VLs that become those site coordinators and teaching courses. Our concern moving forward is the amount of time and money it takes to have that kind of quality feedback for hiring faculty and VLs. So instead of having them as a separate entity, they are one with us in training and focus. Also, in addition to that, is mentor teachers, which is a huge thing. And so it goes back to the same thing. How can we train our mentor teachers to view feedback and mentorship as we see it should be at McNeese State University? And so that's one of the things that we wrote an RFA on, that we have in place as both professional development and embedded within our graduate programs. But again, we are training our mentor teachers and then have no control of where our district places them once they're out and trained. And so that is a concern that we have moving forward. Tell me when my time's up, because I'll keep talking until you tell me to stop. Okay, quality of performance, program performance management. And so this goes back to what someone else said about VAM. So if you looked at our data dashboard from the Board of Regents, we look like we are phenomenal on principals going out and observing our graduates once they're in the field, but our VAM scores do not align with that. And so when TPI US came in and we looked at our VAM scores, math was actually our lowest content. We did fairly well in literacy on the first visit. And so what we did was we applied to be in Deans for Impact, which is also something Louisiana believes initiated, and we revitalized our entire math content, both at math course content and then a math methods content in the College of Education. And so we're super excited to see what our VAM scores are rolling out from that. Two more things, and then 25% of our score is the meeting educator workforce needs. One of the things that we have done on our end, because I'm a firm believer and I can only control what I can control, is we applied to be one of the U.S. Prep Coalition Cohort 3 members, which we got, and we are super excited to have them support us in our transition to full-time residency. But when we think about meeting educator workforce needs, we are having difficulty with recruiting math and science, because in our neck of the woods, we have tons of industry that pay a lot more than teachers do. So unless you just have the passion and fire to change the world, it's very difficult to get them to come into our program. Also, in addition to that, as I said, we are training mentors. We are beating the rocks in the bushes and getting them into our program, but then we have no control. And our issue now is we're training them, and then they're in the high-need schools where we need them, and then districts are choosing to popcorn the teachers into other places that might not be high need. So that's, as we continue to train these mentor teachers, that's our next kind of hurdle we see. And then for teacher quality, which is 25% of our score, with value added. Again, value added is super important. It's something that is objective, not subjective. It's what you deem as necessary to determine student growth over an academic year, but it's a very small portion of our graduates. And so it would be interesting to know how more of our graduates are actually performing in P12 student growth. And I always love to talk about our programs. So if anyone ever wants to talk about our programs, send me an email. We'll set up a time.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think now we're going to have somebody from Xavier University.
Good morning to everyone, and thank you very much for allowing us to be here to talk to you all about the accountability system and how we found it. Xavier has a very small program. particularly on the undergraduate level. And so we immediately jumped on residency for our graduate level in 2016. And we really bought into the model of replicating what's done in the medical world. And so we have that particular residency program in full effect. And I started with that because the residency program is what is giving us the high marks as far as performance profile is concerned. And so we really, really believe in this program. And we hope that the residency programs will be funded so that we can continue throughout the state. We feel that the residency program has really increased and increased at the quality of our teachers that are going into the field. It's also increased our experience in the classroom. But more than that, it's also given us a way to get into schools that really needed us the most. And our mission at Xavier has always to serve the underserved. And we always got dinged on having more teachers in low-performing schools, according to some of the standards. But now we're getting recognized for having our teachers in low-performing schools and also performing very well in those low-performing schools. And so because of our residency program, we have been able to get into these schools and make phenomenal changes, but not because we're doing all this great work, but because we're working collaboratively with people who are doing great work at the schools on the ground level. So it's that collaboration that really has helped us to get the kind of profile scores that we have been able to receive. It also put us in a position to collaborate with some folks that I thought I would never collaborate with, and in New Orleans. And I really believe that that collaboration with Teach for America, TNTP, Relay, Loyola, and ourselves, really concentrating on making sure that we have teachers who are willing to not just say that they believe that all students can learn, but they're also ready to get into the trenches and make sure that they can prove that all children can learn. And they do that through various methodologies. Like I said, I never thought I would collaborate with some of the folks, but because of that collaboration, we have been able to make our program even stronger. So I believe that's basically all that I want to bring to you about the accountability system. It really has made us look at our program. We always felt we had a very successful program, but that program, the success of our program was really on word of mouth. And now we're actually using data to say, oh yeah, now we can do this better, we can do that better. And so this data, the actionable feedback that we have received from TPI, next week we're going through our class measures, state review, and we've used the data from our past TPI look at to improve even our visit for next week. So we feel that this accountability system has really helped us to improve our program as well as improve education within the New Orleans area. And again, I'm a person I can talk about my program all day, so if you have any questions, please. Yes.
May I ask you to give your name? I know you're from Xavier.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. My name is Renee Akbar, and I'm Associate Professor of Educational Leadership at Xavier University.
Thank you so much. I think we're now going to have Nichols State.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here again. We really appreciate it. My name is Dr. Scott Rademacher. I'm the Dean of the College of Education and Behavioral Sciences at Nichols State University. And I think a lot of the issues that came up through QRS were ones that have already been discussed here. Most certainly, we face issues with diversity and getting our students into high needs areas, and certainly that's a situation down the bayou, as we say. And I'd also agree with Dr. Fromley that one of the most important influences in a classroom are the teachers, no doubt. And I think that's the same with an evaluation system. It's all about the people that come and take a look at your program. And fortunately, we had some really fantastic reviewers from our class measures visit. and they had a deep in education, and they were very valuable in helping us to understand exactly what we were facing at Nichols State, and brought up many issues that we had considered and some that we had not. In terms of a timeline, I was relatively new to Nichols State. We had a visit in 2019, October to be exact, and we had just instituted our NIET rubrics, which is the National Institute of Excellence in Teaching. Fantastic rubrics, wonderful trainers, and again, something that we were relatively new to. So we had our QRS visit and we had our results given to us, and we were pleased with those, but we actually had the question at the end of, well, what do we do next? And they really gave us two pieces of advice that's very important. First, they said, you all are doing a good job, you're going in the right direction with the NIET rubrics, but you also need to pump the brakes a little bit, right? You're going 100 miles an hour, you're trying to catch up and make up all these different areas and the grounds that you're doing your efforts are great, but take a step back and really look at your program. And as you all know, fate would have it that we took a very serious break going into quarantine just a couple months later. So we got some true time for reflection. But when we came back to the new normal, I think we took their advice even more seriously and decided to do a complete evaluation of our program, working with some of our internal stakeholders in College of Business. They're fantastic there. And looked at our SWOT analysis across the board and then compared that to the results that QRS had given us. And so far, so good. We've been able to identify areas that we need to improve upon. We've identified our strengths, our opportunities, and certainly our threats. So we were very pleased with the way that things were handled through this system, and gave us some very valuable information, and we look forward to working on that in the future. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And then I think last we're actually going to have Southeastern and Paula Calderon, who is also the president for the Louisiana Association of Colleges of Teacher Education.
Thanks, Sarah. Like she said, I'm Paula Calderon, Dean of the College of Education at Southeastern and President of LACTE, and I can't believe I have to follow all of these great colleagues, great program leaders, speakers, and the humor. And you're not going to get the humor from me. So, well, I'm going to speak a little bit on a personal level for my program, and then I'm also going to speak about serving in the work group as LACTE president. And we are one of the inaugural members of US Prep, and they were instrumental in our changing, redesigning the program, and getting us involved in using our NIET rubric, which you've heard spoken about a couple of times. And that is the rubric that we use to score our residents in any program. When they were student teachers, when they became year-long residents, and in our undergraduate programs, and in our post-baccalaureate and MAT programs, everybody is scored the same. And so US Prep was instrumental in allowing us to do that, and we're in our 4th year with them. And so just kind of wanted to put that out there as how our residents are scored. I had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and took one of our first-year teachers with us a couple of years ago. And she said, I was scored using the NIET rubric when I was an undergraduate resident. When my principal came, and some of you heard this story before, but when my principal came, I said, bring it on, I'm happy to be evaluated, you just come on. And so we knew that by that comment that we were doing something right with our residents and putting them in the field. And so we fast forward a little bit, and we had our on-site review by TPI. Our class measures review is coming up in a couple of weeks, and so my team is in Hammond right now working on that. And so with the TPI review, one of the things that they complimented us on was our residents in the field and being scored by the NIET rubric, and one of our deficiencies or our places to grow was literacy. And so we were able to make a few changes, hire some literacy faculty with expertise in the science of reading, teaching to identifying and working with students with dyslexia, and just some of those areas we were able to take what we learned from that on-site visit and move forward. And so we hope that our class measures visit in a couple of weeks sees that change. One of the things that was a little bit concerning, the teacher quality, the 25% on VAM scores. I don't have it in front of me now, but let's say that we had 85% effective. That's only about 20 to 24% of our graduates. And so the Department of Education and you all, BESE, have recognized this, and that's one of the things that we do appreciate on the work group, is that the department's ears are open, and the preparation providers' ears and eyes are open, and we're looking for a way to get measurable scores for all of our graduates. Now, my provost is a Pollyanna, and she said, well, I just look at that and say 85% of our graduates are effective and brag on it. Whereas I looked at it and said, yeah, but we're missing scores on 80% of our graduates. How are they doing? Are they killing it in the classroom, or are they really struggling and suffering? And so that is part of what we're doing in the work group, is looking for measures to capture everybody. And it gives us more data points, it gives us something to improve. We're always looking to improve our programs, and it gives us that opportunity to say, yes, our world language and our music and our health and PE students, or teachers rather, completers, are doing just fine. Or those same English, math, science, and social studies in the non-tested grade levels, how are they doing? And we hope that they're doing just as well as those with the VAM scores. The other piece, I know Sarah mentioned, if programs had fewer than 10 students, they did not have value-added scores. So the educator workforce needs is increased from 25% to 50%. And so we're getting a little bit into apples and oranges, because if you look at the programs, you'll see the ones with the VAM scores or less, or the performance profiles are slightly lower than those without VAM scores. And so we all want to make sure that we are improving our programs and that we're really trying to figure out how our teachers are doing. But as far as the work group goes, that is what the department and the preparation providers are striving for at this time, and definitely looking for those means to make sure that we're all on a level playing field and scored equally, or at least rated equally. So I believe that is it for me. Sarah asked me how many work groups I was on. I don't know. Sarah and I meet each other coming and going in work groups. And like Dr. Craig mentioned earlier, we've been involved looking at the rubrics in working on the pieces of the quality rating system. And we've got another meeting coming up for the quality rating system, and we're still looking at the best way to make sure that we are seen in an accurate light. So thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming and just sharing a bit more about your experience. I hope that was helpful to you all, and I think at this point I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Brumley.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and thank you for all the providers, not only for being here today, but also for your continued collaboration to ensure that our pre-service teachers are getting the experience that they need to be successful and they want to be on. We have an opportunity, I do believe, as a state around literacy. We have tried our best with the release of our priority plan to focus a lot of the attention in key areas where we might have an opportunity for collective impact across the state. We think here again that we have an opportunity to strengthen our pre-service teachers before they enter the classroom in the area of literacy. literacy. And so we would like to also suggest the exploration of a number of additional supports specifically related to literacy with this. The first is if a provider's score is basically in the needs improvement range for the program preparation or the preparation program experience, we would at the department like to use some of the funding that we have available to urge, hopefully be able to partner with these institutions to provide best-in-class professional development around the science of literacy to their faculty members. So we would actually support the funding around the training for the science of reading for faculty members at these institutions. You know, we would not obviously limit that to individuals in those institutions, but those would be priority institutions up front where they could receive some additional training on the science of literacy, which we believe is really important for pre-service teachers to be able to understand, as well as once teachers are already in the classroom as well, making sure that we're providing training on the science of reading. The next support that we believe we should also explore has to do with certification for teachers who are trying to earn certification in the elementary grades. Right now, statute requires 9 hours in literacy training prior to certification. And what we would like to explore is just the idea of focusing that specific training or focusing those 9 hours around the science of reading so that we can make sure that the training that is taking place in those classrooms for pre-service teachers is based on the science of reading. And then finally, one of the things that we would like to also explore is the opportunity to replace one of the practice assessments that individuals presently take with a literacy assessment, so that we will know then that students, as they are graduating from the universities, have experienced both theory in the science of reading and understand through being able to demonstrate that through their assessment, that they have that level of understanding on the science of reading and are ready to enter into those classrooms prepared on day one. So those are 3 supports that we would like to explore, not just individually as the department, but explore alongside our providers, teachers, and other leaders and other individuals, just trying to all work together to get better. And we would like to improve this process by strengthening the literacy component in the ways that we believe make sense.
Thank you, Dr. Norman. I have public comment at this point. Dr. Kimberly McAllister.
Good morning, Superintendent Brumley and BESE members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I really just wanted to reiterate my colleagues' comments about the quality grading system. I'm very appreciative, as the Dean of the Gillespie College of Education at Northwestern State University, the opportunity to work with each of them, and I strongly urge the work groups to continue their work to look at 2 areas that we believe are not quite measuring what we want it to measure so that we get an accurate viewpoint. They've already been mentioned, but I just reiterate that. First of all, in the student performance metrics, since it's such a small percentage between, depending on what you look at and what program you're looking at, somewhere between 10 and 20% of our graduates are getting results. It's hard to extrapolate that out to see how all of our graduates are doing. And so we believe there must be other measures that could be included there to give a more robust picture. The second is in the identification and monitoring of high-need schools and teacher mentors. As Angel mentioned about popcorning teachers as the districts reorganize, as well as high-need schools. What happened in a school in 2017, based on what's going on, that classification in 2017 is still being used in 2021. And so we believe that that is too long of a time period to identify those high schools are not identified a Heinrich school. And so I just urge the department as well as you to consider metrics that would improve and refine our system. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. All right, board discussion, any comments or questions from board members? Dr. Murphy?
So I'll just say, I want to thank all the people who participated today, and then I'll put it back on. And then also not just your participation today, but the work that you have offered us over the years to make this happen. So, I'm looking at this and thinking that this has probably been about a decade in the making, and even thinking about all of the work that our Ed Prep programs did before that is that Louisiana's preparation program reform that I think, you'll remember has been, it's always been something, right? You all come into the table thinking about what do we have and what do we need to improve. And so I thank you for showing up. I thank you for continuing to participate and be a partner with us to make these things better. Because when I think about the value of getting our students the teachers they need, and for those teachers to show up just ready for those students, it is so important, because our students don't get a second time to do their elementary years or their middle school years or their high school years. So it's just so critical that our teachers are ready when they walk in the door. And I think all of the things that you've talked about here are supporting getting teachers ready. I also appreciate the specificity of things that we've heard. So I think that comment from the dean at McNeese about the quality of feedback that our student teachers get. I mean, that's the heart of improvement, is that none of us can improve if we don't get that feedback. So I think that's absolutely critical. And then, so thank you so much, for your work over the years to get us here and making this happen. And I just appreciate the department in being able to get this out in a way that I think is really going to support our work over time. I'll say, one of the things that I've prioritized in this process is for the public to have an insight, because I was a consumer of teacher prep programs. I always wanted to be a teacher. And I think for anybody who's going to be a consumer of a teacher prep program, that they deserve to understand and be able to make educated choices about what schools that they attend. And so I think not just the fact that we have this information, but we provide this information in a way that parents who may be supporting future teachers through college, or future teachers who are going to be taking out loans, who are walking into the profession and want the absolute best and want to show up on their first day as prepared as they absolutely can be, I think is really important. So I am really excited about all of this work, and then also just to hear Dr. Brumley about moving forward and the next steps, because I think if we were to pull these supports apart, I don't know that they would be near as effective as I anticipate they'll be with putting them all together. So it looks like a three-pronged attack here, and I think that each one is going to support the other and thinking about where we need to go. So it's a moment that I'm really excited about, and I know not everybody has been in all the details of this work, but for myself, as I've observed it over the years and contributed where I can, I really am proud and think that this is a special moment in our work.
Thank you, Dr. From another one, Madam President?
Thank you, Mr. Rock. In listening about your next steps, it's quite exciting. I think these supports make sense, Dr. Brumley. And I'd like for the work group to also consider ways to strengthen the literacy focus within the on-site review process. And in saying that, I was reflecting back, basically like Dr. Bofi was saying, but I too have been in this for several years and experienced the program, the literacy program, and working in the elementary area. And I'm going to tell you, after 15, 20 years of back thinking of balanced literacy, whole language, etc., we're circling back. I had to write down some of these notes, so bear with me a second. We're circling back with the importance of literacy, and I can't express how urgent this is This is a turning point, an opportunity for BESE and for the Department of Ed, along with our university partners, to ensure that we have quality instruction, to make certain that we have effective program providers, and also research-based reading and instruction programs, and accountability for pre-K through third, along with first through fifth programs. The outcomes in student growth depends on teacher effectiveness, so this all ties in. If we truly believe, and this is something that I've believed in, I've worked through, I've had experience with, if we truly believe this is the path that must be followed, we must have consistency. We must have professional development support and follow up with feedback to enhance our endeavors here. Not just for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and here it goes along the wayside. We as educators, and some of us here sitting on board, have experienced that 15, 20 years ago, we knew, hey, this is it. And then it went away along the wayside. So we stopped, we go. We can't afford to do this anymore, and we need to be consistent with this process. And I truly believe that we're heading on the right path, and to be committed to our future educators, and also we owe this to our children. Teachers are open to whatever it takes for student outcomes, student achievement. However, they do get tired of this back and forth, go, stop, etc. So I urge that we continue on with this process. So in saying that, I do understand there is a plan in place for the department to form a work group to consider and provide recommendations pertaining to the supports mentioned, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion for the LDE to report back to BESE with the work group's recommendation and any policy updates this summer.
Before the motion, Madam President, may I just give any other people an opportunity to speak that I?
Absolutely.
Anyone else? All right, Dr. Davis.
I have a question about the department's plan to assess literacy training as a praxis. I just want to make sure that the praxis is actually aligned to the science of reading, so that we don't end up with a situation like the ACT, where ACT is our end-all be-all test when it comes to a lot of things, but our standards aren't aligned to what the ACT assesses.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. And, you know, our intent is not to step into this and say, this is absolutely what we have to do, but to look at, you know, can there be more focus on literacy in terms of assessment that people have to take before they step into the classroom, replacing something else, and not trying to add to, but also looking at the opportunity cost of doing that. So if you replace something, you're giving up something somewhere else. So, you know, we're not making a recommendation here today that we have to do something, but, you know, we have only 46% of our kids in the state who are on grade level, basically by the third grade in reading. And if we look at subgroup scoring, we know that some groups are in the teens in terms of their being at mastery level by the end of third grade. So we do want to focus additional attention here. But your point is well taken.
One more question. So I appreciate that. I'm impressed with the science of reading, and so I hope that we can figure out a way to incentivize that. I have a question about how workforce needs, how it's actually being calculated. So when we're determining whether or not a training program is meeting that, we're comparing the percentage of their graduates that are graduating in these high need areas and comparing them to what the state needs, right? The state needs overall in those areas are. Is that correct?
That's correct. The way the state need is determined is actually by looking at the percentage of classes across the state that are being taught in those high need certification areas. So across the state, 24% of classes are being taught in either special education or middle and secondary math and science. That is the state need. If a provider meets the state need, they're actually at a level 3 effective. And so the way that the workforce needs is set up is that you have to just meet the state need in order to get a level 3. If you are below the state need, then you're at a level 2 needs improvement.
And that's based on the percentage of the graduates in the program.
That's based upon the percentage of graduates who were trained in a high need area. The other thing to consider, though, is that there are 2 metrics in meeting workforce needs. And so if some of our providers don't offer any training programs in a high need certification area. They have a different specialty. And so if a program doesn't offer, if a provider doesn't offer a program in one of those high need areas, it is still possible for that provider to get up to a level 4 highly effective if they're really focusing on placing their residents in high need schools. And we have some providers who are already doing that.
I guess I was curious because when I think you're from the new teacher prep program, when she talked about the areas that they offered, almost all of her areas, with the exception of ELA and elementary teachers, are our high need areas. But our 4-year universities that are offering education preparation programs are also certifying in PE and education and art and foreign languages. And so we are stacking the deck against 4-year programs by using a percentage. I mean, so you're saying they can still make it up in terms of, focusing on those high need areas in every way, but this is clearly a system, a bias in the system against like the broad approach to educating teachers to meet a full array of education needs. And so I'm curious about how the work group is balancing this out in their discussions.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think that, as we've said, as the system is being phased in, it is important that it continues to be refined. I think, at the same time, it's also important to keep in mind that across the state, we have a high percentage of classes that are being taught by out-of-field or uncertified teachers in middle and secondary math and science and special education. We know that most of our educator workforce is being trained right here in Louisiana. And so the extent to which we can really align the program offerings with what our state needs, we have a really huge opportunity to ensure that all of our students are being taught by educators who were trained in those areas.
So I would just say, I totally understand the need for meeting our needs in the classrooms in terms of math and science, but I guess incentive structures have to be carefully balanced. I would hate to see us get into a position where, several years ago, Louisiana realized it needed more 4-year college graduates, and so we created an accountability system that only rewarded schools for educating individuals that were going to go to 4-year colleges. And then, so that we had no incentive for high schools to continue their vocational education training programs or anything else because our incentive structure didn't value that. And then all of a sudden, after several years, we realized we didn't have enough welders because our schools had shut down their vocational education training programs because our accountability system did not value that. And so my concern is that we're making sure that 10 years down the road, we're going to realize, wait, what happened to art and music and all of those programs that have value because we created an incentive structure for evaluating our teacher prep programs that doesn't value that.
Yeah.
So
I think that, this is an incredibly important point, and I think that it's important for the worker to consider it. I do want to offer one data point that I think is important. When we look at which of our early career teachers are most likely to be teaching out of field in their very first year of employment, it's our teachers who were trained in elementary and our teachers who were trained in pre-K to 3. So we're seeing that if you were certified in those 2 areas, it is very likely that you're actually going to be teaching out of field in your first year of employment. So we have a little bit of a mismatch right now in terms of the percentage of candidates that are being trained in those areas and the teachers that we really need in those high need certification areas. We do not have a balanced system right now. And so the idea is, can we balance this more by saying, hey, in our state, we really need more special education teachers, more middle and secondary math and science teachers. I think your point is really important, that there has to be balance, and we can't go too far, to one side. And so that's why I think that the process, in terms of having a work group continue to look at the system and understand where are refinements needed, I think that that structure and process is incredibly important.
Thank you so much, and I want to say to you, I'm really impressed with the work that this group has been doing, and that I think that this continued revision process, trying to figure out what are we doing really well with this process and what needs improvement, is really important in the way all policy ought to be done. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ms. Roche.
I also would like to thank everyone for the incredible work that's been done in this effort. I also have a teacher provider program in my district, so I very heavily lean on the advice and the movement and the progression from this particular group down. I do believe that the literacy efforts that we're embarking on is it's very needed. I think with the accountability program, looking at making some changes in K-2 accountability, we're going to be seeing more in the pre-K-3 and the K-3 grade levels, additional measures for those particular teachers. So I think that piece we're addressing right now, improvements that Superintendent Brumley wants to make, I'm very interested in hearing about and looking forward. But I also like, and I don't want to lose sight of our math and science need in our middle and high schools. When we look at the actual assessment results in our middle school math, and we're looking at the level of mastery of our students, which continually declines. You look at the 8th grade, and what I'm finding is that we're producing, first of all, we're not producing enough through our undergraduate programs and even in our teacher preparation provider programs, enough graduates in those particular areas. And those scores are continuing to decline, and those candidates that we are putting in those particular areas really need strong help in the actual content knowledge. So as we move forward with some changes and strengthening efforts in the literacy at the lower levels, which I totally support and agree with, I really would like us to take a serious look at the math issues, especially as they relate to our middle and then into high school.
Thank you for that. I think that's an important contribution, especially as we explore or we're baffled sometimes that our math mastery rates for kids from 3rd grade versus 8th grade, we see such a dramatic fall. And it's not isolated to a few places, it's a statewide dramatic fall over a few grade levels. So I'm going to ask Sarah to certainly make a note of that, and we'll get consideration of that as well.
First of all, I wanted to say how much I appreciate Dr. Akbar's comments about collaboration. So I really appreciate that. It's a win-win for everybody, and really, really important. I also appreciate all the focus on needs, particularly literacy. Dr. Brown said that Rocky Reader is going to see back in the room, so appreciate the focus on literacy. I wanted to ask the group one here about the accelerated tutoring program that the state's initiated to help to address the learning gap and universities fall back up. Is there any consideration at the university level to consider the curriculum going forward, give students an opportunity to participate in that tutoring program so that they get that tutoring experience? We help to satisfy the resource requirement, and at the same time students can get college credit for their work.
Dr. Calvin?
Yes, sir. We've already had conversations with our partner, at least two partner districts about implementing Accelerate and using some reconfigured student hours so that they would be able to not observe but be heavily involved in that in ways that they've not before. For example, the residency hasn't been able to occur in the summer. We still, because of policy issues, can't do residency in the summer, but we can stockpile some hours that they can do in a summer kind of configuration to help with learning loss that can flow into a residency.
Is there anything we can do to help address those policy hurdles, provide those opportunities?
I don't think so yet, but we may be coming back to you with that. This is very new, and so we're just having those conversations. And some districts haven't been sure what they were going to do yet. It just unrolled in February, as you know. And so we're excited about the opportunity. It'll also allow our students who've been, quite honestly, very disappointed with their residency experiences in this COVID environment to have the word backfill comes into mind, but allowed to do some of those more traditional one-on-one or small group experiences with kids to see those light bulbs go off and experience growth in a not virtual environment, but in a face-to-face environment. So, but we may be coming back, sir.
Yeah, and I'd love to see somebody formalize that process. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Tony. Any other board member? I have one other public comment, and that's from Dr. Keith, or was it Carville?
Hey everybody. Friends, I promise you my testimony is less verbose than my emails, but I've been a part of this and have been following this for years now from both the previous administration and the current administration, and I just wanted to take a moment to compliment it, to commend the efforts of the administration, particularly Ms. Sarah Delano and Dr. Keith Leger. And as you've all seen from the testimony this morning, this is valuable, important information that people are using to make positive changes for their programs that are positively impacting not only our districts, but also our pre-service teachers as well. So we really want to see this work continue and expand. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Doctor. At this time, I take your motion, Madam President.
Thank you. I want to clarify here. I'd like to make a motion for the LDE to report back to, I'd like to make a motion for the LDE to report back to BESE with the work group's recommendation and any policy updates in June. BESE.
Do we get a second? It's been moved by Madam President, second by Jones. That's the motion. And I'd like to put the motion. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, I think that's everyone. Next item.
Your next item is on page 21, item 3.1, consideration of an update report regarding mentor teacher waiver and the mentor teacher work group recommendations. The department recommendation is to receive the report from the mentor teacher work group and direct LDE staff to draft potential policy revisions consistent with the work group recommendations for BESE consideration. A PowerPoint deck has been distributed.
May I have a motion to release? I shall move. Do I have a second? Move in second. I think that. Motion with second by Ms. Motion. Ready for the presentation?
Mr. Rob?
Yes.
Before we begin this particular item, I'd like to take just a moment for privilege here. You know, we are consistently talking about the need to deepen the pool of teachers across our state and have more teachers come into the profession. And one of the areas that we are exploring as an agency is looking at some individuals who are already in the schools that might have a desire, capacity to go ahead and move from classified type positions into certificated positions. So moving potentially from paraprofessional, as an example, into a teaching position through the appropriate training. And so I wanted to call that out because paraprofessionals in our schools are often heavily invested in their school communities, and they're heavily invested in the success of children within those schools. And they already have so many experiences that help prepare them to be classroom teachers. And so we are looking at that group of individuals throughout the state and thinking about, what levers might we be able to pull as an agency to be able to do that, to add to our teaching population, but also it is economically for these individuals an opportunity for them to advance in their own standing, in their own personal lives as well. And so we have a group of individuals here with us today that I just want to take a moment and recognize. These are paraprofessionals in our state who are working through some of our initial programming to move from being a paraprofessional to a classroom teacher. And I think this is really important, and I think it's an opportunity where we have to expand our workforce by investing in some people who have already been invested in our systems and in our children. So we have some people here. I'd ask them to just stand and be recognized. Thank you for your commitment to this.
Thank you.
Mr. Rock, thank you for allowing me to do that. At this point in time, we are going to provide a presentation on the status of the mentor work group, look at some initial recommendations that this group may have for us. If you recall, we stepped into the summer and we had approximately 100 individuals who were wrapping up their college careers but unable to find placement as a resident in our schools. And so this was a real challenge that this board had to work to solve immediately for students so that they could have placements and they could complete their residency. And so at that point, with that issue at hand, the board formed a work group to look at, what are some of the challenges that we are facing that have prevented the staffing of these 100 residents. And so, we made the immediate shifts, but we also wanted to take a deep dive and look at some of the challenges. And so, Kimberly Eckhart on our team has been leading this work group for some time. Ms. Ashley Ellis has been the BESE liaison to the work group, and they have really spent considerable time trying to work through some of these challenges to bring forward recommendations. Now, we are not asking for approval of any recommendation today. We're only presenting where we presently stand and give this board an update. So, Ms. Hackett, you're up.
Thank you so much for that. It is such an honor to be here, and it's crazy the way that life works. I think the last time that I was here was actually to talk a little bit about grow your own programs and expanding and recruiting. So because I'm a perpetual imposter, I feel compelled to tell you that while that's some pretty front-facing work, no teacher is a one-trick pony. And so the last 10 years of my 14-year career has been exclusively dedicated to the retention of teachers, which is where the work around Grow Your Own arose. So I just wanted to let you know that to be able to serve to facilitate this group was such a special thing. I've served as a mentor teacher, a master teacher, instructional coach, I've developed programming, I've worked with teachers internationally. And so to be able to work with this group who I also had really close relationships because I needed them so much to help me grow, to be able to grow teachers, it's just been a really special time and a really, really great collaboration. So what I'm going to share with you today, as Dr. Brumley said, we started to meet in this particular work group, which Dr. Calderon is also a part of because you don't have a party unless she's there. She really is in all the work groups. But we started because we really took a look at the fact that we were going to have continued issues to be able to get really high qualified, talented mentors to be able to serve. And I think that's something that's often overlooked is the fact that this is completely a position of service, that a teacher can have a completely perfect career and never open their classroom door to another teacher. So how do we actually take a look at that and honor what teachers are and what they bring and make sure that they feel comfortable and assured that their knowledge is valued, but also that they have an opportunity to be nurtured and developed further. So taking a look at this specifically, some of our needs that we knew we just couldn't have the same space again, and I do believe that with or without COVID, we may have found ourselves in a similar situation, but we know that in some of these areas that we just flagged as being really difficult to staff to begin with, our math courses, middle school, special education, but also all of our amazing world languages, our arts programs. These were just spaces that we need to take a look because these teachers were not interested in completing a mentor process, period. You also have to look at the fact that with this, we almost sort of ignored that there were already mentors working in schools, and that the reason why we have a robust pipeline now is because teachers have been doing a really great job of mentoring their peers over the decades. So what we really wanted to take a look at in terms of really listening and trying to get a really good pulse to be able to come up with some data-driven decisions is looking at alignment of assessments. Teachers know assessments, so they also know whenever they're taking assessments that don't particularly feel aligned to the work that they're being tasked with. So we needed to take a look at this. We needed to take a look at current policy to make sure that we were inclusive of teachers with skills in mentoring. And these are those teachers that have been doing this work for a really long time or that just show great promise. And then the last piece was determining what types of supports. Where is this working really well? What can we do to actually increase this number of mentors that are actually completing the assessment series? So inviting them in and making sure that they actually make it across the finish line. So I'm going to tell you an overview of the 6 recommendations that the work group is proposing, and then if you'll allow me, I'm going to take some time to sort of explain each one so you can understand the rationale behind each. So the first was taking a look at honoring previous training and experience. What can we do to make sure that we're not losing people who've already been doing a lot of this really great work? The second recommendation is to remove content-specific assessments. The third is to create a mentor support guide. The fourth is to create an add-on mentor endorsement. Right now it exists as an ancillary. And then number 5, exploring mentor assessment content and scoring, so to actually take a look at this space to make sure that there's inter-rater reliability. And then the last piece, the work group really felt it was important to grant a year extension for those who currently hold a provisional mentor certificate. And with or without COVID, it's been a challenging year. So we want to make sure that if any of these recommendations are implemented, that we give these educators that were almost there a chance to come back to the fold because we need them. They're not just being rained down from trees. We need them to come back, and we need them to we need to make sure that we're providing a space for them to be able to do that. So the first recommendation, when it comes to honoring previous training and experience, there's one particular space that you've actually heard a great deal of by the group that just presented, and it's those teachers that were already holding an NIT teacher evaluator certificate, which means that they've served as a mentor teacher or a master teacher in a really heightened sort of petri dish of teaching and learning. So these people, their actual jobs and their ability to turn schools around and impact retention, they've been doing this work a really long time, and so they were excluded from being mentors unless they also went back to get this additional piece. This is a space that actually applies to me. Just another fun fact, I actually have a resident right now, which is really interesting because I still teach. So the NIT piece, it's not just that they are certified as evaluators, it's the work that goes into being able to call yourself that. So we thought it was very important to include this group. And then also this piece where educators hold an EDL or a Supervision of Student Teaching certification. And the rationale for that, the EDL, I think it probably universally goes without saying, is that obviously if you could run a school and you're tasked with evaluations and you're tasked with coaching support plans, it makes sense that you should also be able to host one teacher. And then the piece for Supervision of Student Teaching, that was a really interesting space that we spent a lot of time looking into because it was sort of singled out in a way that similar endorsements were not. So even though it is an older piece, it's not exclusive to other spaces. So if people were principals or if they were superintendents and they took these older exams, those too are replaced with more updated assessments, but we didn't revoke a person's ability to be a superintendent or a person's ability to be able to supervise special education, these other standalone endorsements. So this one, because most of these people holding supervision of student teaching, your state superintendent included, a lot of them were on their way to an administrative position, so there actually aren't that many. And those that are, we really do need all the help we can get, especially with the new mentoring piece and policy for PLs. So if you happen to still have somebody with a supervision of student teaching license and they still happen to be a classroom teacher, then using that experience is really important, and it's another way to expand up the pool in a way that's quite frankly a low-hanging fruit. So, moving on. So this next piece was a piece that really pulled a lot of knowledge and a lot of thought partnering for the particular work group that we formed. So in working with human resources from around the state, we really tried to get an understanding of what are some of the major pushbacks on teachers who basically just kind of give up. And we realized that the way that we speak of teachers, it's sometimes not really valuing their actual credentials and what they bring into the work. So what we found, it wasn't that the assessments were too hard for them to complete. It's that they didn't feel aligned in terms of calling them content, and it's almost a misnomer. So obviously teachers are certified in some spaces, and not all, and we'll get to that in just a second. But those extra pieces to create assessments that didn't have anything to do specifically with coaching, that was a pretty hard sell to get many teachers to invest the additional time, because there's other ways. The teachers have a rich way to be able to prove their knowledge. You can get a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, or you could become a reading specialist. There are so many different ways, and so by kind of forcing these pieces of the content leader training into the mentor piece, it detracted from the art of andragogy, which is adult learning, right? And being able to really, really focus and isolate what makes a good mentor for adults a good mentor for adults. And so another piece was that places that were in different areas, if you're a band teacher or you're a math teacher, it was just a really hard sell to get them to design tech sets or to get them to take a look at the planning process whenever, presumably, if the school district was putting the money for it, they probably have already proven themselves a million times over to be able to serve in this capacity. So then that last piece kind of brings it back full circle, in that we really, really wanted to sharpen the focus on teaching. And I think somebody said it earlier, teachers are hungry to learn. I think there's other ways to bring them to that. In terms of providing continued support, because if you've mentored one person, you've mentored one person. The one you get the next year is a whole different set of needs. And so there's a way to continue to incentivize further learning, and every good teacher knows that by the time you arrive, it's time to go home, but it doesn't necessarily have to be attached to an assessment. And so the work group really recommends that we take a look at allowing teachers to expand their learning, but taking those content-specific pieces off so that the sharper focus is on the mentoring itself. This last piece, well, it's not a last piece, but it's a piece that has to do with really supporting districts, and it has nothing to do with policy, but creating a really robust mentor support guide, because there are schools and districts that have done an amazing job in pulling things in, and we really need a living, breathing document that kind of shares these best practices. There are some schools that are paying bigger stipends on top of what is already allowed. There are some districts that are allowing embedded time for teachers to be able to work on this, because without it, it's all in their own time, in addition to their teaching load and their grading and their humaning and adulting. But there's some schools that are really embedding that and really, really going for it in terms of how they invest in these mentors. And then there's also some prep providers who are doing some really amazing work. So this support guide is one that we're still working on, and it's going to be released, but completely alive and updated as we get more best practice. And that's the spirit of the work group. The professionals that are on it all come from such unique spaces and strengths. So to be able to compile the best of that, to be able to share it around the state just makes sense. How do we continue ongoing support of mentors? How do we make sure that they're being utilized in ways that if they're not hosting a resident that year, are we still capitalizing their expertise? So this support guide we felt was really important. This next piece, it's almost like, I wonder why this didn't exist already. So A lot of people on the work group felt that the mentor piece should be an endorsement. So currently it serves as an ancillary, so it's separate from a teacher's teaching certificate. And we do understand that the initial spirit of this is because with charter schools or non-public schools, their mentors may not necessarily be certified teachers. So to have this on a teaching certificate, it would have excluded, right? And if we're dealing with the business of access, how can we include and allow these trainings to be accessible to the most without harming? That made sense at the time. However, our prep providers noted that it's also really critical to have information in one space. So a teacher's teaching certificate should show all of their certifications. So this needs to be a pretty easy change to be able to make, where those who still need it as an ancillary, they're able to have it, and those who are certified teachers, they'll be able to have this on their actual teaching certificate, so that spaces only need one place to go to be able to look up these credentials for their teachers. We're almost at the finish line. So this piece, exploring the mentor content and scoring itself. So we did hear from different spaces around the state that there needs to be some confidence built in this space where there wasn't a confidence of inter-array reliability. And I think anytime we deal with assessments, the best teachers know we sometimes need to calibrate, we need to take a step back, and we need to make sure that what we're seeing is what we're asking for, and what we're seeing, somebody else is seeing it the same way. So in terms of LDOE, this is a space that we could definitely enter to make sure that the relationship with the scorers, that there's some kind of understanding, like how do we ensure that scoring is reliable? How do we ensure that assessments continue to be aligned to trainings? And how do we ensure that consistency overall? And of course, the last piece, it's the sake of time. And there's a couple of things here. One, granting an extension for those who currently hold the provisional. This is going to be critical in a million different ways. The first, there are many people currently who have already decided they're not finishing this program. They decided from the start of the year. And it's interesting, I'm one of them, because we literally had no other mentor. We didn't want to lose this teacher, so I'm still teaching so that I could host somebody so that my district doesn't lose her. But if we make some of these changes, we're really hoping to bring teachers back into the fold, because you also have a large amount that we've lost along the way. Like that first round where these were like the really intensive trainings, a lot of those teachers, once they realized that there were going to be these lengthy assessments, they were just like, I think I'm good. But remember, these were not scraps, right? Like these teachers have already been recommended and identified with their school districts and their schools as being amazing. We want them back. So if you're willing to consider this, then those holding the provisional is just a way to say, hey, come back, we really need you. Like we really, really want you to serve. You're going to be amazing for teachers. We don't want to lose you. And that goes a long way with not only showing teachers that they have value, but also reality, that they're not just falling out of the sky. We need to be able to work with them and give them some space to consider coming back with these changes. We have reached the end of my slide deck. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you so much. I want to get a sense of the scale of the problem. So I've heard, I think two people mentioned 100. So there were 100 people that didn't have placements. What's the denominator here? 100 out of how many teachers that actually need the mentors?
I actually don't know. As the facilitator of the work group, I know that I have the information somewhere, but we were just here to solve the problem. So we could definitely get those numbers to you.
Okay.
I think what's another thing to consider is that it's like each year things shift so much. There's very few people who host teachers that are willing to do it year after year after year after year, because they're still responsible for the growth of their students. And so I think that you would find that without a really robust pool, that the numbers would fluctuate each year anyway.
Okay. And there's some changes that, I can get behind today, some that I'm going to need more information on. But before we start making some drastic shifts, I think it's important for us to understand the scale of the problem. And I will say, I think part of the issue, and this is something that I'll let my other members know, is that last year this board passed a stipend for our mentor teachers that I think is a critical component of this work, and something that
I think needs to be in the MFP, and then I'll be making a motion later today for that to be included in the MFP, because this is critical work, people who are contributing to our profession in ways that will, pay off for years and years and years. So, but I think understanding the scale of the problem is also connected to it. I also, when the chair says that it's the right time and moved to go ahead and move forward on the extension today, because I think that, that will play into people's consideration of being part of it, and I don't think we should wait anymore. I mean, this has been an unprecedented year in so many ways, and we need to give people as much grace as we possibly can, while also holding really high standards, because this matters so much to kids. One question that I do have that I'm wondering if the work group considered, because I see this notion for people who have the ed leader license being able to serve as the mentor. Did the work group have conversations about whether or not that's appropriate for a school leader to be mentoring someone in their own building? Because I have some concerns about it. I frankly don't know anyone who goes straight to their boss when they're really new, which people in these situations are either going to be new or working towards their certification, which they haven't even really started yet. And so I have concerns about that being the school leader or the evaluator of that teacher, or the potential future evaluator of that teacher, as we heard earlier, that a lot of our interns are staying in their schools. So I'm just curious to see if there was any conversation with the work group around an exclusion for people being evaluated by the leader of that building.
Fair question. Okay, and I think that here, the devil's in the details. Having an EDL doesn't necessarily mean that you're the principal. Teachers are notorious collectors of continuing education. I've got quite a collection myself. There are many teachers who pursue these advanced degrees because they want to be stronger teachers and leaders. And I'm a strong believer you don't have to be in charge to lead. And I've got many peers who have no desire to be a school building level leader, but they really wanted the education. So I don't know that it's a question of the principal serving as the mentor, because they couldn't unless the principal taught all day or taught a substantial portion of the day. I think it's more so if a teacher has gone through the training, whether it was an alternative path of 240 hours, or whether it's the actual degree program, their master's degree or beyond, that should be given credit and really honor a teacher's agency to choose how they invest in furthering their career.
So I think you're giving me a little bit of clarity here, in the sense that in order to be the mentor, like what are the requirements around being the student being the mentor?
Well, I reckon having students would probably one of them.
Okay, so essentially that would prevent which is my concern.
Yeah.
Right? It's my concern that a building leader who's charged with evaluating a person would also be considered that person's official mentor.
Yeah, and as you know, in a perfect world, I imagine there's going to be a school where there's just nobody else. And we have some districts that their turnover is so high, there are so few people on a campus that have made it to the years to be able to mentor another person. And I think that we've seen that more with the PLs. But by and large, I don't know that that's the case. I think it's people who hold this particular credential. I don't think it's the building level leader that's trying to serve in a mentor capacity.
So as you guys continue to work through this, I'd like some consideration towards that point, because I have some major concerns about it.
You got it.
All right, thank you. You don't have more than. All right, yes, Ms. Boucher?
Yeah, I'm really happy with the product that the work group is moving forward with those recommendations. And I'm really supportive of all of the recommendations. The 100 who needed waivers probably doesn't include all those who we granted the one-year extension to, who had the provisional answer. Because I know that was, in my district, we didn't have to necessarily apply for the waiver for many of them, because these teachers had a provisional ancillary in the process of doing. But to your point, many of those teachers are dropping out of the program because of the lengthy assessment, number of modules and such. I think what you're offering or the recommendation that the group is making is very needed and it's very pointed. We're emphasizing and supporting mentors to be proficient in that coaching model. As far as some of these other modules we were looking at, content specific, that's been taken care of through other means. So as a mentor teacher, coaching piece is extremely important. So I applaud for looking at the assessment series and focusing in on what is absolutely necessary to become a mentor. I think we will then be able to bring many of our teachers back into the process, which is what we're trying to do, some of our better teachers. So I'm in full support of what you're proposing with these, and I would like that extension granted, obviously, enough here because of the situation this year, not only with COVID, but with the uncertainty of many of our teachers if they were going to proceed in the process or not. These recommendations, I think, will help more of our teachers continue with this mentoring process.
Thank you, Ms. O'Shea. Any other board member? Madam President?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, great report. Appreciate the work group. This is exciting to see the work being done and the recommendations. I just need understanding, clarity. There's a work group recommendation here, which I really appreciate. I truly understand. I love the direction we're going in. This is a report that we're receiving. When do the recommendations come forward? Is it April? And how do we approve this one-year extension? Is this something we need to do now?
As I understand it, I remember we will receive the report and then direct the action to go back to the department to bring recommendations back.
And so we wait on the one-year extension until the report, the recommendations come back.
Correct.
I understand. I just wanted to
That, I mean, the goal was to receive feedback from the board today around where we are. First of all, have the board see where we are, then receive feedback, and then go back and, based on a motion from the board, go back and draft the actual policy revisions. However, it does seem that there may be some level of shared interest in the extension happening sooner than later. So, I mean, welcome any
Can we make a
action
motion?
around that item.
A motion be granted.
I think that's what Dr. Bogan was speaking to.
Extended, one-year extension for those currently holding a provisional mentor certificate. Ms. Butcher?
I'll second that.
Ms. Butcher?
May I take your motion to when I get a little bit later, because I want to get the public comment first.
Ooh.
And then I will come back to the motion.
You're doing a great job, Ms. Brown. Thank you.
We're ready for public comment, and I'm going to call Barbara Burke, please. Public comment.
Hi. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Barbara Burke. I am Director of Human Resources for the West Baton Rouge Parish School District. And I'm here today representing the Louisiana State Association of School Personnel Administrators. And I just want to mention that last week we had our spring Personnel Administrator Conference. And as you can imagine, a big topic of discussion for us was mentor teacher certification. So I want to begin by saying that the LaSaspa group is definitely in favor of the work group. We are appreciative that the work group was allowed to convene, and we are very, very excited about the direction where we're headed with these recommendations for policy changes. So what happened was at the conference, as we began to talk about this important topic, we realized that there was one component that was not brought forth as part of the work group, and that's the mentor certification waiver application process. And so the way the waiver process worked, you all approved it last August. And I provided the one-page application for you all in case you had never seen it. It was a very simple process where if a university reached out to a school district and needed to place a student teacher, and we didn't have a trained mentor certificated teacher to accept that student teacher, then we could apply for a waiver via that one-page application if the teacher came highly recommended by his or her principal, and if the teacher met a certain set of criteria that's also listed on that one-page application for you. So this worked well for us. As I was sitting with my colleagues last week at our conference, we began to kind of toss around numbers and totals of waivers that we all had to apply for. And I have gathered just a few of those for you. So for West Baton Rouge, we fell short 11 mentors. So 11 waivers were granted. Ascension had 13, St. Landry had 15, Terrebonne 20, Lafayette 45, Caddo 40, Livingston 41. And I have other numbers. That just gives you an idea of the number of mentor teachers that these districts, this is where they fell short. So they didn't have someone who qualified for the provisional certificate, and they also clearly didn't have someone that was fully trained and held the standard ancillary mentor teacher certificate. So unfortunately, this waiver process was only granted for the 2021 school year, and we anticipate that it just might be needed for the 21-22 school year. And so we're asking for this mentor teacher waiver process to just, for you to keep it on your radar as we move forward next month and these other policy changes move forward. So we're asking for consideration for those districts that fall short and don't have enough trained mentors. Our only option without a waiver is going to be for us to turn away student teachers. And for us to do that, we're working very strategically right now with LSU. Just to give you one other example in West Baton Rouge Parish as why we feel that the waiver will still be needed. We place around 10 to 12 LSU dual certification majors. And what that means is they're enrolled in an education, teacher education program so that they become certified in elementary general ed grades 1 to 5 and special ed mild moderate grades 1 to 5. If we place one of those particular candidates, we are required to place them with a team of West Baton Rouge teachers, and that means a general ed teacher and a special ed teacher. So we need those two teachers, those two team teachers, to qualify for the ancillary mentor teacher certificate. And that's where we fell short this year. We may have had a general ed teacher who qualified, but the special ed teacher didn't, and we couldn't make that placement for those LSU dual certification majors. So we're thinking very strategically. We believe in the mentor credential. We believe in the recommendations that are moving forward. We're just asking to please keep on your radar for the 21-22 school year, just in case we fall short. What do we do? How do we place those teachers? How do we keep that partnership alive with our programs? Because we know that that is the lifeline for us for recruiting purposes. So I thank you for your time today. If more information is needed, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, Barbara Burke, at West Baton Rouge Parish School District. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a card from Marcus Thomas. He supports the Okay, Dr. Kimberly McAllister.
I do not wish to speak, thank you.
Dr. Keith Cargill.
Hi.
Hey everybody. Once again, really great to talk to you all today. And I just want to impart a few things. First, being that I've been on, well, I guess it's now my second or third mentor teacher work group, formally and informally with the department. I just want to tell you that serving on so many work groups, there's some work groups that do too much too fast. There's some work groups that don't do much of anything. And I have to tell you, this work group I think has gotten everything just right. Bottom line, I wanted to again commend Kim, Sarah, and Dr. Leger and all of their work in this. And I also want to impart on you too that if anyone has any questions, I'm here as a resource. We not only have been involved with this for so long, but we are the largest mentor teacher certification provider in this entire state. And I can tell you that we endorse these recommendations. We don't think that it will diminish the accountability for the program. We don't think it'll diminish the efficacy of the program. And we don't think it'll diminish the participation of the program. We think these are good recommendations. If anyone has any questions on specific recommendations from an educator's perspective or a program provider perspective or any other perspective I can try to fit into, y'all just give me a call. I'm always here as a resource for you, but I can tell you that the department has done good work on this. This is important work, and it will continue to build renown for this mentor teacher program, which is ahead of so many other states. And I did want to just add a small aside too. I was kind of anticipating maybe some questions from you all on recommendation number 2, and I have had some questions so far on that. I will tell you that bottom line is, some ways, somehow, we all got a little, I guess, confused on the role of mentor teaching. There was a designation that there was going to be 4 tests, and then people decided to put content stuff in there. And look, having content stuff in mentor teacher, as Kim pointed out, isn't just an issue of having teachers finish the program or having a teacher that's teaching science now having to pass a test on ELA or literacy content, which entirely slows down the entire process. But the fact of the matter is that we also have content leader in this state, and that by having content assessments, the same ones, by the way, for content leader in our mentor teacher program, we actually diminish the value and the participation rate of an amazing series of trainings, the content leader trainings in our state. And we've seen, and Kim can testify to this, we've actually seen some districts that were part of the work group fight this recommendation because they just wanted to do one training and cram everything in there. The bottom line is that content assessments and the content portion of this needs to be separated out for the value of content leader and the value of mentor teacher and our teacher's completion. So thank y'all again for the time. Keep up the great work, everyone, and looking forward to seeing the recommendations in action.
Thank you, Doctor. Next, I will recognize Wes Watt.
Get a great greeting. Thank you, Mr. Rock, members of the committee. Wes Watson, the superintendent of schools in West Baton Rouge Parish. And I'm here speaking on behalf of LAS, our state superintendent association. We appreciate the work group, the recommendations that they're making for this program, and the idea that we do also understand the value of proper training for our mentor teachers. But we do appreciate that work and support the work that they have in those recommendations, but also in accordance with Ms. Burke and our Personnel Association, would like to ask for that waiver for one more year. Our teachers went through a lot this year. A lot of the work that some of our mentor teachers were doing got put on hold because of COVID and so many other things. So we would just like to ask also for that waiver for one more year. This isn't something permanent, just to help us get some folks that we have started in this mentor training program to allow them to complete. And so that was just on behalf of the State Superintendent Association. Support the work, would ask for that waiver also.
Thank you very kind. All right, the last one is Kawanda Corley.
Thank you so much. I have quite a few questions that apply to this program. Number one, we did not hear any requirements for the mentor or for the mentee. That's crucial. If we're going to implement programming that's going to take money, we need to have a lot of things specified. So requirements for the mentor, requirements for the mentee. Number two, how will we make sure that underserved populations, such as children with disabilities, receive proper education? We did not speak much about making sure that this program would provide specialized training in regards to helping children with disabilities. As we know, COVID-19 has impacted that population in a major, major way, and especially in the education arena. IDEA is not being fulfilled. So if we're gonna make sure that we have something, we need to make sure that we look at that, because that is the most protected, federally protected group of students. Number three, we did not spell out anything regarding the certification process as it relates to being disseminated on LDOE's website. As you know, we can actually track and look at what teachers are certified and not, but that is not being spelled out in this program as well. I think the work group needs to consider that. Number four, we did not look at whether or not criminal background checks will be provided and done. If we're gonna have a work group that is gonna be mentoring people, we wanna make sure that we're mentoring every single person that is safe. Because we cannot put people that are criminals, that have sexually abused or anything of that nature around our children. So we wanna make sure that we have all of that taken into consideration. Last but certainly not least, we wanna make sure that this is gonna provide us with highly qualified and certified educators in the education arena. We have a lot of teachers right now that are extremely vested, and right now we are having a problem with retaining the ones that are extremely highly qualified and highly certified, because just like the BESE board members today are sitting and being protected with plexiglass, they don't have that in the classroom. So we do need to take all of these things into consideration when we want to talk about implementing another program that is going to take more funding. Can we please take into consideration bringing the pay average for our educators to the national average? I think that's something that we should actually be taking time today to discuss. Because again, our educators are being highly recruited from neighboring states like Texas to pay them for that amount.
Come to a close.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Rock, can she give her name and agency, please?
My name is
It's Karonda Corley.
Who do you represent?
And I'm representing several organizations.
Which
Step Up Louisiana and FATE, Louisiana FATE.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Okay. Comments from the members of the board? I'm ready for a motion. Madam President?
Yes, I'd like to know if I could do this. I think I jump start. I'd like to defer to Dr. Bofi to make the motion.
Sure.
I'm so sorry. I know she spoke about it first, and I want to give her the opportunity. Go right ahead. We got the stars out there. We're like, go right ahead. No, you're good. Thank you.
So I'd like to move to grant the 1-year extension for those currently holding provisional mentor certification. I think that the work group has identified this as a pressing need, and I'm so excited that the work group is going to be doing more work around some of these, and I'll be able to engage with people about those. But this one seems really timely to me, that if this is communicated out to the potential mentors now, it'll give them an extra month to start working. So I don't want to hold up on that one and hope that the board can get behind it and support that extension.
May I have a second? Second by Dr. Davis. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Yay, this means I'll have another year too.
Yes, ma'am. And I want to see that when you finish. Got it?
Okay. Next motion.
Your next item is on page 28, item 4.1, consideration of an update report regarding the Teacher Certification Appeals Council. The department recommendation is to ratify the minutes of the TCAC meeting held February 25th, 2021. and to approve the appointment of Dr. Arthur Joffrion, a certified school system administrator representing GLASS, Dr. Dustin Avier, a College of Education faculty member representing Lake, and Mr. Scott DeVilliers, a certified school system administrator representing LACE, to the membership of TCAC for 4-year terms from 2021 to 2025.
Moved by Ms. O'Shea, seconded by Ms. Holloway. Any objection to the motion? Any discussion? No discussion, any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passed.
Your next item is on page 33, item 5.1, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 746, Louisiana Standards for State Certification of School Personnel regarding the Praxis Middle School Science Exam. The department recommendation is to approve, as notice of intent, revisions to Bulletin 746 regarding the adoption of the new Praxis Middle School Science 5442 exam.
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Buffy, second by Ms. O'Shea. There's discussion. Hearing none, any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passed.
Your next item is on page 67, item 7.2, consideration of executive session regarding the discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of a person in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 4216 regarding certification for the following persons: Andre Henderson, Jennifer Burnley, Shalacy Beaudoin.
Can we get a motion to go into executive session? Moved by Ms. Holloway, second by Dr. David. We have public comment or board discussion on this matter before we take the roll call. And also, this motion passed 2/3 of the affirmative vote of members present is required. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Dr. Bofi? Yes. Mr. Castillo?
Yes.
Dr. Davis? Yes. Ms. Ellis? Yes. Mr. Garvey is not in attendance. Ms. Holloway? Yes. Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Orange Jones? Yes. Mr. Rock?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. O'Shea? Yes. Passes.
Motion passes. I will advise the audience that we will be in executive session for the length of time necessary for the discussion. No votes will be taken while the board is in executive session. All votes will be made in public. Additionally, public disclosure is not required. Matters discussed in a properly held executive session. At this time, the educator effective is to really stand in recess to go into executive session. Can I get a motion to reconvene the educator effectiveness committee and continue with the regular order of the agenda to vote on the item discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Duffy, second by Dr. Will Weaver. Okay, a motion, second, right, next item.
Your next item is on page 68, item 7.3, consideration of a records review regarding the reinstatement of a Louisiana teaching certificate appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Andre Henderson. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
Have a motion.
Move to grant.
Move to grant, do I have a second? Second. All right. Moved by Ms. Ocean, second by Dr. Davis. Any discussion? Hearing none, the motion passed.
Your next item is on page 82, item 7.4, consideration of a records review regarding the certification status of Ms. Jennifer Alyssa Burnley. The recommendation is to reinstate, revoke, or defer.
May I have a motion, please? All right. Motion to do what, Dr. Weaver? To revoke? Do I have a second? All right, second, Ms. Ashley. All right. Any discussion? opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes.
The next item is on page 104, item 7.5, consideration of a records review regarding the issuance of the Louisiana ancillary certificate appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Lacey Stevenson Beaudoin. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
Motion. Grant. Motion by Dr. Murphy, second by Sarah Jones. Okay. Motion, any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passed.
That concludes your agenda.
We stand adjourned.